This is the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast. I'm Lisa Salisbury, and this is episode 106, Improve Your Body Image with Michael Ulloa. I have been following Michael on Instagram for quite some time now, and I think you'll love his down-to-earth attitude about fitness and health and bodies just as much as I do. We chat extensively about how to feel better in the body you have and thoughts you might like to adopt as you inevitably check other people's bodies against your own. We also talk about how to get started or just move forward with your fitness and health goals, whether that includes body weight change or not. I think you're going to really love this conversation. Welcome to Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well, the podcast for women who want to lose weight but are tired of counting and calculating all the food. I'm your host, Lisa Salisbury. I'm a certified health and weight loss coach and life coach, and most importantly, a recovered chronic dieter. I'll teach you to figure out why you are eating when you aren't hungry instead of worrying so much about what you are eating. Welcome back to the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast. I'm delighted to have Michael Ulloa here. I've been following him on social media for quite some time. You've probably, if you follow me, you've seen his stuff because I share his stuff in my stories pretty frequently. I think he's just so straight on, so down to earth, and I just really love what he is putting out in the world. So I asked him if he'd come share with us here on the podcast. So he said yes, and just welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into what you do?
Thank you so much for having me. And I always appreciate when people share my social media content. So once again, thank you for that as well. Also, a slight disclaimer, I have a 15-month-old child. If you hear a random crying at some point, my wife is with him. It is all okay. I'm not leaving him to all on his own. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Michael Ulloa. As you said, I'm an online personal trainer and performance nutritionist. So I run an online personal training business. I've worked with people in I think over 25 different countries now. Been doing this for around 10 years. I work with everyone from kind of your everyday exerciser that just wants to improve their health and fitness, all the way up to kind of higher performance athletes. Half of my time is kind of doing that, coaching clients. And then the other half of my time is creating social media videos, writing for fitness publications, speaking events. I have my own podcast as well. So yeah, kind of 50% of my time is coaching. The other half is social media and the other kind of weird stuff that brings along with it. And my messaging or my mission is to kind of break down the barriers around health and fitness and make the fitness industry a more welcoming and accepting space. I hope that I can kind of leave my stamp on it when I'm done. So that's a very kind of quick snapshot of what I do.
Right. I know that in the past, this hasn't actually always been where you have. I noticed you had a post about like, sorry to my 18-year-old self who, basically thought differently. I feel like I need to put that same post up. I'm like, sorry to my 29-year-old self who just thought that losing baby weight was more important than anything else. And, the thing I feel like I'm sorry about for my past self is like thinking that things like being pregnant was being fat, and well, this is the last time I can be fat, so I can eat whatever I want, those kinds of thoughts. And I feel sometimes sad for her, and for my past self. And I noticed that you kind of put that out there too. So how did you kind of take where you were and get to sort of like the healthy space that you are now?
It's just been a really slow progression over time. Like I know that a lot of the time the people that maybe work in the space that I occupy, I don't know whether you want to call that body neutrality or whatever it is, a lot of the time people have like a moment or a thing that maybe made them switch and change their approach. And I didn't really have that. As I said, I've been a personal trainer now for around 10 years. When I first started coaching, it was very much typical kind of bro approach, always counting calories, never doing cardio because I thought it would ruin my gains, all the kind of stereotypical things that the fitness industry will tell us. And it's just been a real slow process of like really delving into the research around these topics, following some great people on social media that have maybe opened my eyes up to how health and fitness can be. And also working with some very honest clients as well, who kind of look at my content, give me feedback on my content. And I feel like now the approach I take to health and fitness, I'm truly making a difference, right? I don't really feel like I was doing that when I was taking that kind of mainstream approach to health and fitness, where it was all about getting lean, showing pictures of how lean I could get or how big I could get in terms of muscle growth. I've kind of started to peel away from my social media of making it about me completely. You'll see that I don't share pictures or videos of what I can do athletically. Like sometimes I will, just because it's my day and I will log it, but I don't make it about me. I don't share before and after photos of clients, that kind of thing. My messaging is all about kind of focusing on the behaviors and the habits that we change rather than making it all about aesthetics. So yeah, it's just been a real slow progression over 10 years. And I'd say I've just kind of refined my approach. And because I've been a coach for so long now and worked with so many people, you start to kind of find your way with what really works and what doesn't. And yeah, it's good. I'm happy with how I'm coaching
Yeah.
people now, which is nice.
Yeah, I don't do before and after photos either. I find that I can't take a picture of the before and after because it often the change is happening in the mind. The change is happening
Completely.
about the way they're thinking about their body, and so, yeah, their body shape may change,
Hmm.
may get smaller, may I work with clients often that have, sometimes 50, 75, 100 pounds to lose. So, sure, their body's going to get smaller as they are able to move around easier because they're, doing that, but I have clients that say, "I'm getting emotionally stronger," and that becomes more important, and that is impossible to share a before and after photo of.
Completely. I have clients who like to use before and after photos. I'm never going to tell a client that they're not allowed to use them because we
Sure.
all can monitor our progress or our journey in our own way. I think that's really important to emphasize. However, I think the issue with social media especially is so much of it is physical, and our it just emphasizes the belief that all of our health progress comes from making our bodies smaller. And I work with a lot of people who have been yo-yo dieting or stuck in the dieting cycle for years, sometimes decades. And the thing that
Mhm.
I always like to emphasize is that if that is you and you are struggling with it, are you struggling with kind of air quotes there? You can improve your health and fitness without ever acknowledging your body weight. And I think that that's a really cool, powerful thing to tell people. That's not to say that losing weight won't improve health markers, it can. But if you're someone who has for so long been obsessed with weight loss, and that's what all of your behaviors and habits are tailored towards, separate yourself from that for a little bit and just actually focus on the habits and behaviors that will improve your health, and that's when the magic happens. And that's what I want all of my messaging in terms of fitness to be about. Completely non-judgmental that anyone wants to have any aesthetic goals. I lift weights to build muscle. That's an aesthetic goal. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you make your entire being, your entire fitness approach about that one thing, you're never going to be happy. Like you're constantly going to be losing that battle. So yeah, it's a bit of a shift and can be quite difficult to sell people on, but I truly feel like that should be where the emphasis is.
Yeah, just somehow disentangling our body image from our scale weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about body image, and it's a little bit tricky for me. I was actually thinking about this ahead of time, like, "Oh, maybe I should do a body image episode with a female because, part of females' issue with their body image is, sort of conforming their body for the male gaze is kind of
Mhm.
the term, And
Yeah.
so I wanna be, like, careful of that, but also I think you're really good at it. So I wanna not worry about, that you're a guy because I think you can be really good at it and also be male. So let's talk a little bit about body image and how you help improve that for people and how you can kind of disentangle that from sort of the activities that we're doing, because I find so often how you were saying let's focus on the behaviors and then that's where the magic happens, but underlying I think it's really hard to be like, but if I do this my body will change and then I'll feel better.
Yeah.
Like, how do you actually improve that? How do you actually stop thinking that stuff and really focus on the behaviors?
It's so difficult, and there's going to be so many different reasons why people feel like that. So there's never going to be one answer here that will kind of give everyone listening that kind of like breakthrough moment. But I truly feel like if we can shift the focus, if you can shift the focus as an individual to performance and focus on things that are not image based, I'm not going to say that you're never going to think about that. I do, like
Mhm.
I exist in a society that values thinness and then values the way that our bodies look. I work in a fitness industry that will constantly tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm not getting really lean or showing the way that my body looks. So I just think we have to go into it completely with zero judgment. And it's just a slow process over time of slowly shifting the focus. Don't beat yourself up because you can't completely shift away from it, but start trying to put some emphasis on something that isn't the way that your body looks. And then I often find that habits and behaviors start to snowball, and slowly the shift starts to happen over time. And I know that that's once again a really hard sell because people want a shiny 10-week program or a 12-week program that you can promise them, but it's just not like that. I would say that I've been on this journey personally for like 5, 6 years, and I'm still not fully there, but I'm getting there. Like it's
Mhm.
everyone's journey is unique, and yeah, I think it's just a slow push away. I also don't want to completely ignore the thing that you said at the start there about me being a guy working in this space, because I think that is really, really, really important. And I'm never going to be offended when someone brings that up, or I'm never going to get defensive. I always am the first to acknowledge my privilege in this. I occupy a space within the fitness industry that kind of isn't for me. Like I am a white straight guy who works in the fitness industry who kind of looks how the fitness industry says we have to look in order to be fit and healthy. Even though I don't show that off, like I just do. And I think that I just have to use my platform to amplify the voices of others, which I really try to do. And I also think that there's something powerful in the fact of me looking as I do, saying, okay, fitness can look like this, but it absolutely does not have to. Unfortunately, a lot of the people championing this message, they're usually people in larger bodies. And as soon as they post about this content online, they get met with so much hate. My comment section is brutal, but it's nothing compared to what some of these other content creators are receiving. So if I can use my platform to be a bit of an ally without making it all about me, I don't want to sound all kind of white knight about this, but I do think there's something powerful in kind of me gently
Mhm.
stepping into the space and trying to help amplify this message, even if some people are just not going to receive it well because of who I am, and I'm fine with that. I've accepted that a
Yeah.
long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I was told that recently. They're like, "Well, you know, you have thin privilege, like,
Mhm.
because I have been in the space where I've always wanted to, or quote unquote thought I needed to lose that last like 15 pounds. Like I've always been in that yo-yo space. And so, and and I was really shocked when she said that because I'm like, no, I need to lose weight. Like I thought, I was like, no, I really did need to.
Mhm.
But there is some privilege around that, and
Yeah.
just noting that we're not in those larger bodies. I did notice that you posted something about someone who was actually pregnant, and people were like so awful in the comment section.
Mhm.
And it's just crazy when you're like, what do you want? I know there's been some advertisers that have used folks in larger bodies to promote their athletic wear, and people are like, go to the gym. And you're like, they are. What do you want? Which is it? Like, are they supposed
Yeah.
to just work out at home until they're like, I don't, it's so, so crazy.
It's people in larger bodies are just never going to win. But I think I've discovered that personally as well in terms of trying to fight back against some of the trolls that I get. Like you're never going
Mhm.
to be muscly enough, strong enough, lean enough. Like you're just never going to appease people. However, the friend of mine whose content that I shared the other day, her name is Beth. Her Instagram handle, I think, is SportyBethCF, I think is her handle.
Mhm.
She is an amazing athlete. She kind of advocates for people in larger bodies, doing health and fitness. She pushes such a great message. She is also 9 months pregnant. And some of the comments she receives are just insane. And yeah, once again, that's an example there of I try and push out the messages of these people that are creating amazing content, but I take my hat off to anyone who can keep putting out content like that when they are receiving so much hate, because it is relentless, and it can be really, really brutal.
Yeah. So for those listeners and clients of ours who aren't on social media, as far as they're not the ones putting their photos out there, maybe they're just consumers, but they're not in this space as far as being fitness influencers. They're just regular for the regular people out there
Mhm.
is what I'm trying to say. Not that we're not regular, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yes. Those mere
um,
mortals.
yeah, right. Um, how can they improve their body image and sort of help themselves detach from some of these messages that they're seeing online or just their own messages in their head? Like, if I do these sit-ups, maybe my stomach will look better.
Mhm.
How can we shift that from, hey, what would be really cool is if I could do a pull-up. Like,
Mhm.
that would just be a cool thing for me to do. This is a
Yeah.
a goal I was mentioning to a client recently. I was like, "What would just be cool? Like, what accessory movements do you wanna add on to the end of your workout?" Because it would just be cool to do that. Like, right now, I'm working on a higher number of push-ups because I'm like, I just think it's kinda cool
Mhm.
to be
Yeah.
able to drop down on the floor and do, like, for me right now, I'm working on 10 strict push-ups, like, really good, excellent form, just because I think that would be cool to be able to do. Not because
Yeah.
anyone in the gym is noticing me,
Mhm.
because the gym I go to, I swear, people just keep their head down, no one looks at you, and it's like
Yeah.
90% male, which is kind of annoying,
Yeah.
but, I don't really care if there's anyone watching me do that. I just wanna do it. And how can we help people get to that point and think performance goals are actually cool and they have
Mhm.
nothing to do like, that goal will have my body will not look different when I can do that.
Once again, very difficult. It's funny you mentioned that about gyms because I think there's a misconception about gyms where people think they're these kind of really big, intimidating, scary places. However, like 99% of the people in gyms are so supportive of everyone else in there. And
Mhm.
also the gyms that usually have kind of the biggest, most intimidating looking guys are usually the most welcoming and most friendly. However, that is a slight side point.
Actually,
Do you
let
know
me
what?
tell a story about that
Yeah,
real
please
quick.
do. Go for it.
So, I go to get on the hack squat machine, which for if you haven't tried that, it's basically like a squat machine, but on kind of like a 45-degree angle, right? And the guy before me was too tall, and it was left in a position where I physically could not use the
Yeah.
machine because I was too short. And I'm like, "What am I gonna do?" And I look around and everyone's just got their headphones and their head down, and I'm like, no one cares. Like, literally, no one is looking at me. No one is
Mhm.
like, "Oh, that girl's too short." Like, "Ha, ha, ha." No one. Finally, I caught the eye of a guy that was taller than me, and I was like, "Hey, could you?" And he was like, "Oh, no problem." Like, it was so no big deal, but I thought
Yeah.
at first, literally nobody is looking at me.
Yeah. It's so
Nobody's
funny,
watching me
isn't it?
struggle with this machine.
It's and also these people who are in the gym a lot, they like this is their life. Like these people live and breathe fitness. If someone comes up to
Yeah.
them asking for help, you've made their day. Like they'll be
Yeah,
thinking about that
right.
for the rest of the day. So yeah, pick the gnarliest, biggest dude and ask him for help because he'll be buzzing for it. Um, yeah, it's funny. It's a really tough thing in terms of shifting mindset around like internal dialogue is really important. I know that sometimes it can sound really cheesy, but the way that we talk to ourselves really matters. I mean, it's something that I bang on a lot about during my content on social media because it's something like a really small shift can actually have a really big impact. Like if it's not something you would say to a friend of yours, why the F are you saying it to yourself? And that can take a lot of time, especially when people can be quite negative and quite used to criticizing themselves. But that is really important. And then I actually think you just need to start vetting where you get your information from.
Mhm.
Um, Simply because all of the messaging around health and fitness that you see, like if you just go onto Instagram, TikTok, type in hashtag fitness, and you're not seeing
Don't do
natural
that.
bodies. You're not seeing, yeah, don't do it. It's awful. You'll just see kind of a completely bizarre world that is nothing to do with health and fitness. Um, so people
Yeah,
need to
like
start.
true health.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just not like it is social media fitness, and it's
Mhm.
kind of lots of people with hardly any clothes on. A lot of people clearly taking steroids. People who have very disordered relationships with exercise and food, simply
Mhm.
because to look like that, you kind of have to. And I know that sounds like I'm making a sweeping statement, but it's true. Like if you delve into the eating disorder rates and the kind of poor body image rates around the fitness industry, it is terrifying. It is
Mhm.
absolutely terrifying. So I think you need to start curating where you are getting your information for any fitness and health. And I think if you're only following a certain type of influencer or following a certain type of professional that's giving you advice and they always kind of look and present the same way, you're skewing what can be a really impactful way of changing your behaviors. Diversify your social media feed. Ironically, coming from the, once again, white straight dude who posts a lot of fitness content, but honestly, like I did this around like 2-3 years ago, and holy crap, my view of fitness has completely shifted without really doing anything.
Mhm.
I now have people of all body sizes doing amazing things with fitness, and that just fires me up compared to just following all the kind of usual fitness influencers that you see. I don't find that motivating anymore. Like it just feels a little bit kind of, I don't know what the right word is. It just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel as authentic as it should
Mhm.
be. Whereas like human bodies are designed to look different. Like show that on your social media pages, because that's how you start getting kind of real inspiration in terms of changing your behaviors. And honestly, curate your social media feed. Stop taking advice from doctors trying to sell you books around certain bonkers diets. Stop taking away health advice from these influencers that lost a lot of weight and now they see themselves as a professional. And it's, we just need to start being a bit more sensible about where we're getting our information from, and that one can be really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, just thinking about when we see people in different types of bodies doing different things, it just leads to that thought, all bodies are different, and
Yeah.
maybe my body could do something different too.
Mhm.
And whether that's the possibility of doing a pull-up or push-up or a certain weight in
Yeah.
squats, or just the possibility that you could run for 10 minutes. When you see different people of different abilities doing different things, it just opens up your mind. When you're
It
only
does.
seeing a
Mhm.
certain type, you're like, "Well, I'll never look like that, so why bother?"
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. And our perception of what we have to look like in order to be healthy is all wrong for society. You know, like we're told in order to be healthy, you have to be lean and a big amount of muscle mass. And it's just not going to look like that for a large number of people. So it slowly does start to shift your perception of what is actually truly healthy and what is kind of perceived as healthy from kind of societal standards. It's it works. So I can't recommend it enough.
I think too, what we perceive as lean and big muscle, like the my first image is the fitness models like on a stage, those
Hmm.
bikini type models. And I, first of all, I'm too short, but second of all,
Same.
I'm not willing. I'm just not willing to ever do that. I'm
Mhm.
not willing to be, and like you said, in the disordered eating space to look like that. So when I recently had a DEXA scan, which I talked about on the podcast a couple weeks ago, I was shocked at how good my body composition was for how it appears in the mirror. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, that's crazy. Like,
Mhm.
I think you would be shocked at how very, very what you would consider normal looking, average looking bodies are actually plenty muscular.
Mhm.
And that's, by the way, that's the biggest emphasis. I have plenty of muscle, and I was just shocked by that number. Like,
Mhm.
I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess lifting for 4 or 5 years straight, like, I guess it does work. And it's okay that I don't look like a fitness model. That was never the goal, and it just it really helped me a lot.
It's really infuriating, isn't it? How kind of for decades now, I guess, we've slowly been influenced by these fitness models who are put on this pedestal of like, this is what health and fitness looks like, and if you strive to look like this too, then you will be healthy. Um, and and once again, like the steroid use rates around fitness models are huge.
Do you
I
think
think
it females too?
yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and just kind of like general like surgery enhancements, things like
Mhm.
that, all the tips and tricks that are used in terms of photography and Photoshop and stuff. I think if we were really to pull back the curtain on what goes on within the fitness space, I think a lot of people would be terrified. I think it's very rare now that you probably go into any gym across the UK, US, Australia, whatever, where there isn't someone taking steroids. Like it is rife. So we're constantly looking at others because we do it. We're human, right? We'll look at others in the weights room. We'll be like, oh, they're a bit bigger than I am, or they're a bit leaner than I am, or whatever. And it's we're constantly comparing our bodies to others when actually we don't know what that person is up to in order to look like that, especially when they're the kind of 1% that make it onto the front of magazine covers, right?
Mhm.
I actually I used to train with an old friend of mine. I haven't seen him for a long time. I feel like I can say this story. We were doing a training course together at the same time, and we would work out together in the morning for like an hour and a half, for like months. Like we did this training course together, and he was always just like a little bit stronger. Like his recovery was a little bit faster, and it used to annoy the hell out of me. For months, it used to wind me up. And a few years later, he was like, "Oh yeah, I was taking steroids back then." Just like never
Just
told me at the time.
offhand.
Yeah,
Just
just
like
offhand comment, and I was like, "Oh, just makes sense." Like I was really frustrated criticizing my own body and my own efforts because I was comparing myself to someone and I had no idea he was taking steroids. I was just never going to be able to compete with that. And it was just like a nice little, oh yeah, like take note of this and remember it for when you start doing that
Mhm,
with other people that you see on social media, because it's just it's all smoke and mirrors. The fitness industry, 99% of it is smoke and mirrors. It's funny because
mhm.
I work within it, but I actually hate the industry as a whole because I think it caters towards those that are already fit and healthy, that look a certain way, and actually those that really need us and really need the support of the fitness industry are completely left to the side and made to feel like they're not part of it. Like you mentioned at the start, when you see someone in a larger body on social media, it'll be like, get to the gym, start working out. And then you see a larger person in the gym working out, and it's like, oh, well, not there, or I can see you, like it's
Right.
just people
Not
just
in
can't
public.
win. Yeah, not in public. It's so frustrating. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why if we kind of constantly expose what the industry is actually showing people, hopefully people will start to kind of latch onto it and start to realize that there is a different way that you can approach health and fitness that is truly healthy. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's the work I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
We're working hard. Feels like
We
we're fighting a
are.
losing battle, but we're working hard.
Well, and I mean, comparison's always gonna be a losing game, but I think we have to give ourselves some grace. This is how we survived in hunter-gatherer tribes. Evolutionarily, this is normal. It is normal to look and compare and ask, "Do I fit in?" That is absolutely how our brains were designed, because if you didn't fit in, you were, like, left for dead in the right? Like, you were
Hmm.
kicked out of the tribe. Being kicked out of the tribe is very, very dangerous to our brain, right? And so, when we play that compare game and do I fit in game, you just have to remember, "Okay, no, that's my lower brain.
Hmm.
That's my kind of primitive brain talking there. And I know I can bring it up to my human brain, my prefrontal cortex, that human part that's developed that says, I'm going to be okay.
Hmm.
It's totally fine for me to look different, act different, be different. I can be me, and it's safe because
Yeah.
it feels very, very unsafe, especially to your lower brain, to not fit in. And so I always just say, don't get super mad that you're comparing yourself. Of course you are. Of course you are.
Yeah, it's usually the issue that I have with a lot of sections of the fitness industry. There's like, especially within the kind of maybe like anti-diet crowd or whatever, once again, you kind of want to bracket certain groups where it can be quite anti-weight loss and quite critical of anyone who wants to lose weight. And I don't
Mm,
think that's helpful at all. Um, I work with a lot of people that have weight loss as a goal simply because that's what most people reach out for personal trainers for, right? It's
sure.
just the nature of the work. And I know there's a lot of coaches I know that would refuse to work with someone who has weight loss as a goal, and I actually don't think that that is the right approach. I will happily work with and do happily work with people that have weight loss as a goal, but we just don't make it the emphasis, and it comes with zero judgment because, once again, like society, it's easier to exist in a society when you're looking in a way that society deems as kind of more desirable,
Mhm.
So I will happily work with these people. However, I try and shift the emphasis once again. Like we
Mhm.
start saying, right, that's cool. That can be a goal, but it's going to be kind of like it's going to maybe happen as a result of all these healthy habits and all these healthy changes that we're going to start making. And it's once again a really, really hard sell for people,
Well, and
especially when you first start off personal training, right?
the other thing about weight loss being a goal is it can one of the ways that it can be really valid is the improvement in performance. And what I mean is, I can't remember the statistic, but I think for like every pound that you lose, it's like 10 pounds of pressure on your knees, or 4 pounds is 10 pounds. It's a lot. And I have clients that are like, my knees are hurting. I have trouble going up the stairs. I want to do this hike. I want to do this activity. I want to be able to play pickleball. And taking some pressure off their knees in the form of losing body fat is actually very helpful for those functional things. So that's really where I like to focus when weight loss is a goal, is
Hmm.
like, what will that help you do? How will your life be better in the form of function? How will you function better if that happens?
Yeah, it's all a trade-off, right? I think we all have to kind of analyze what is important to us and what is the best way to approach our health. Um, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this because it's so I work with a lot of people who've had previous eating disorders. It just kind of is the
Mm,
nature of kind of the content and the people that I attract,
mhm,
especially people who have had a lot of disordered eating, at least, even if not diagnosed eating disorders. And there's a certain approach that you have to take with different groups, different demographics. And I think that we all as a whole just need to analyze, like, right, what is best for me? If you come from a background of really disordered eating or really disordered relationship with exercise, I think it's important to kind of shift the focus completely away from the aesthetic and we start focusing on things that are not that. Whereas you might have someone who's come to me with kind of quite a healthy relationship with food and exercise, and therefore body composition goals kind of feel a bit more straightforward and a bit less intrusive. So I think we all just need to be quite kind of like self-evaluating when it comes to, right, how do I want to improve my health? What is the best way for me to approach this? And then start there. And I know that's usually easier said than done, but it's why I really think it's important for us to keep championing the message of there is no one best diet to follow. There is no one best
yeah.
way to work out. Like the way that you approach exercise, the way you approach nutrition has to be completely unique to you. And that is the beauty of it, but also the most frustrating thing about health and fitness, especially when we've kind of got these big accounts with huge followings telling you you must go down this route or you must take this diet or this exercise approach, and it's just not true.
Mhm.
So yeah, there has to be like an element of as I said, self-evaluation of what you think is right. But for certain demographics it can be quite straightforward. For others it could be a really bad path to go down. So yeah, it's one of those where if you have someone in the fitness space that you trust, you can kind of have these conversations with, like reach out to them. I love chatting to people about this, so feel free to reach out to me, but it can be quite difficult to navigate.
Yeah. Okay, I noticed recently you had a post that said basically stop focusing on stuff that doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And I think we've kind of talked kind of a lot about stuff that doesn't matter, but if we're not focusing on that, where would you say to focus on if you're first getting started in sort of a an exercise or health related journey?
So there's always like an optimal way to do things, right? Like I could meet someone and write them the most perfect exercise program, but if I put in exercises you don't like, a form of working out that you don't enjoy, like it's not going to work. So we almost have to like take the optimal and think, right, how can I incorporate that into the way that I like to move? However, the most important thing is doing something that you really enjoy in terms of exercise. Yes, if you can do some form of strength training you really enjoy, then please start with that because the benefits of strength training are huge, like absolutely huge. However, I always think getting yourself moving and doing exercise that you enjoy, even if it's like you don't enjoy it, but you hate it less than all the other forms of exercise that you've tried in the past, right? If there's just like a little window of like, okay, this feels all right, or this feels a bit more bearable, start there and then just let the habits form and creep in. In terms of nutrition, which I actually think is the more difficult part to navigate,
Mm,
is when people go to improve their nutrition, their first thought is like, right, what am I going to cut out from my diet? What am I going to take away? And automatically it just becomes this really like negative, horrible experience because we're taking away something that we really enjoy to eat. So the best way that I always like to approach nutrition is keep a food diary or some way to track your food in that you feel comfortable with. So some people like to use apps to track note section on your phone, old school pen and paper. If you can just take stock of what your diet looks like and highlight like one or two areas that you think, right, I can improve it there, of things that you can add into your diet to improve it, that's where you start off. And a lot of the time when you do that, we call it the add, don't restrict approach. As soon as you start taking that approach to nutrition, it just becomes this kind of really positive, exciting experience rather than negative and restriction. And then once again, the habits start to snowball. It might be that your protein intake is lacking. So, right, let's increase protein intake. And then naturally, you feel a bit more full. You start eating fewer kind of processed foods because you're feeling more satisfied and your sweet tooth has dropped. Like all these little habits, when you make them positive, it really can start something great. So, that's kind of where I would start if I'm giving a generic sweeping statement.
well said. I think it's right in line with what I would actually say as well. So, so of course I love it.
We're not going to have an argument. Rubbish.
Darn it. All right. Well, thank you so much again for your time and wisdom here. Why don't you tell people where you are online and if you have any offers you want to talk about?
If you want to find me, all my social media handles are the same. Maybe look to the show notes of how to spell my name, because it's a bit of a bizarre one. So it's Michael Ulloa PT, and that is mostly on Instagram. I kind of dabble in TikTok. I'm on Threads a little bit as well, but it's kind of mostly through Instagram. I do have like a fitness subscription group, which is called Get Fit with Michael, and that's just at getfitwithmichael.com. But other than that, like if you have any questions or just want to chat about this stuff, I am a massive research nerd. I love going into the intricacies of nutrition. Even though the demographics I tend to work with, I don't tend to delve too much into the intricacies of nutrition. However, if you have any questions or anything, I welcome it. I love chatting about this stuff. So thanks for having me on.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Michael. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Michael as much as I did. If it has helped you in any way, could you just do Michael and I a favor and share this episode with someone? You can either just send it to a friend or, even better, take a screenshot, post it to your stories, and tag Michael and I. We would love that. And as always, if you're looking for that extra bit of personalized help with your body image, fitness goals, or weight loss, be sure to schedule your free coaching call with me and see how much you can benefit from a coach. Link for that is in the show notes. Have a great week, and as always, thanks for listening to the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast.